The bulk of the logic for this site is going to revolve around a rake task that fetches new business ideas and stores them in the database. So let's get started with writing the rake task. We'll create our rake task in libtasks and we're going to name it updateideas.rake. Note that rake files end with the .rake extension rather than .rb. Now, rake is a fairly arcane syntax which we're not going to cover in too much detail as it's not super relevant to the workings of this app. We'll start with a description of what our task does. It updates business ideas. Then we'll write the task. We're going to name it update ideas and we're going to depend on the environment task. This just gives us access to our Rails environment. Okay, so all this task is going to do is call out to some Ruby class which will handle the logic of fetching and creating ideas. I like this approach because it allows us to reuse the site updating logic elsewhere in our app if we want to. Running this task fails with uninitialized constant ideas update. That's no great surprise as we're yet to define that class. Before writing the code for the ideas update, let's follow TDD and write a test. I'm going to place this test in spec resources as I'm going to implement the ideas update class in app resources. I like to put these service classes in app resources to start with until I find a better home for them. They're not models, so app models would be a bad place for them. I could see putting them in the lib directory, but I want to take advantage of Rails auto-loading the app directory. So we know from the rake task that this class needs to implement the call method. So we'll define a context block for that. And what does this call method do? Well, it should create some ideas in the database which we can later access and display to the end user. But before it can create those ideas, it's going to need to get them from somewhere. We'll have the logic for fetching ideas handled by another class. We don't want to give ideas update too many responsibilities. All this class is going to do is add the ideas returned from some other class to the database. We'll call the class that handles getting the ideas IdeaFetch, and that class will have a class method named call that returns the list of ideas. Okay, so ideas update doesn't need to care about how IdeaFetch gets its ideas. All it cares is that it returns a list of those ideas. Next, let's also stub the active record model that will store the ideas. We'll call this model business idea. Ideas update isn't really concerned with how records are persisted. It just cares that each of the idea strings returned from IdeaFetch.call is passed to the business idea model. Finally, let's call ideas update and write our test expectations. We expect business idea to have received create with its body set to each of the ideas. We'll refactor this test shortly, but for now let's run it and see where it guides us. Running our test gives us uninitialized constant ideas update, so let's fix that. Now we get uninitialized constant ideas fetch. Ideas fetch needs to implement call. We'll TDD ideas fetch in the next video. Uninitialized constant business idea. We'll generate that model now and we'll add its tests later. Ideas update needs to implement call. Okay, we've fixed our errors and now we've got a failing expectation. Let's write the code to make it pass. We'll get the ideas returned from ideasFetch.call, loop through them, and pass each one to businessidea.create. Running the test again gives us all green. Cool. We could have written the ideas update call method like this, but I think code is generally easier to reason about if each line does only one thing. Let's finish up by refactoring our tests. We'll move the stubbing and the calling of ideas update into a before block. Then let's pull the ideas into a let block so we can refer to them more easily. And finally, let's clear up our expectations by looping through the ideas. Okay, that's it for ideas update. Next, we'll look at implementing ideasFetch.call.